Hello and thanks for tuning in to this edition of Whether or Not. Yet again, another great show ahead this week. Michael Page is making a return with details on how the environment can affect the seafood that makes it to your dinner plate. And of course, everyone is talking about the heat episode that took hold of us here in the East this week. Jackie Lair is back to let us know if a cool down is on the way. All this plus more, Whether or Not starts right now. Hello and thanks for tuning in today. I'm your host, Brandon Orr.
And I'm your forecaster, Jackie Lair.
Well, Jackie, the heat has been streaming into the area this week, especially Wednesday into Thursday.
Yes, but that didn't stop people from going outside, especially to the Spikes home opener game here in State College on Tuesday.
That's right, despite all that heat and humidity. And there are a couple home games coming up this weekend. Will the fans catch a break?
Yes, the fans will catch a break. I know I was at the home opener game on Tuesday. I was sticking to my seat the whole time. You won't be having that problem this weekend as the dew points will be in the upper 50s, so pretty comfortable.
Okay, we'll see just how comfortable it's going to get in your full forecast in just a moment, but for now, let's turn it to nature in the news.
Born only months after the Titanic sank in 1912, meteorologist Robert Simpson has experienced some of the worst weather disasters in United States history. As he nears an astonishing age of 100, one of his largest contributions as a developer of the Saffir-Simpson scale, rating hurricanes by wind speed from Category 1 to 5, remains a critical component of documenting and communicating hurricane strength. This past April, he not only attended the American Meteorological Society's conference on tropical meteorology, but he presented a paper that outlined the history of the hurricane scale. Although retired, Simpson says he is still determined to contribute to the weather industry.
In 1972, the first storm of the hurricane season, named Agnes, developed on June 16th, just east of the Yucatan Peninsula. It made its way north, affecting much of the eastern seaboard of the United States, with devastating flooding here in Pennsylvania. Most of the Commonwealth received a half a foot of rain. Locally, weather observations taken from Penn State's Meteorology Department reveals rainfall totals here in Centre County between 8 and 9 inches. The highest amounts of over 10 inches were focused on the Susquehanna River Basin here in central Pennsylvania. This resulted in destructive flooding across numerous locations. In our capital of Harrisburg, flood stage was exceeded by 15 feet with a deluge of water across the city, even forcing Governor Milton Shapp out of the governor's mansion by boat. Hurricane Agnes was the costliest natural disaster in our state's history, with totals reaching $2.8 billion.
While a tropical system like Hurricane Agnes is not expected to develop anytime soon, a weaker system in the North Atlantic was named on Tuesday. Tropical Storm Chris, the third tropical cyclone of the 2012 Atlantic hurricane season, is not expected to reach hurricane strength as it swirls northward toward cooler waters. Hurricanes rely on the energy that warm ocean water provides, especially water that exceeds 80 degrees Fahrenheit. The hurricane season officially began on June the 1st and will run through November 30th. This season is off to an active start as Tropical Storm Chris makes the third system so far this year. As of late May, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration is still predicting a near normal season.
A new study is currently underway in Colorado to understand how major wildfires can make their own weather. They're learning how heat and smoke radiating from the fires in the west can affect wind and cloud formation. Numerical weather prediction models, which forecast wind speed and direction, temperature, humidity, and visibility for fire managers, have improved over the last 10 years, but they still need work. More observations are needed, and not just at the ground, but up to a few thousand feet into the atmosphere. Fire managers need models with greater resolution and in real time. This research is expected to be a key player in fire control. Locally, fire conditions have not been high since early April, where winds and low humidity combined to spark several fires, which were quickly contained in Clearfield and Centre counties. While conditions have been dry this week, here's Jackie with some details on any wet weather in the forecast as we approach the weekend.
Thanks, Brandon. And yes, we're going to be seeing a little bit more in the way of precipitation as we go into Friday afternoon. But other than that, the weekend looks like it's going to be very nice. And that's because the setup here, we have a meridional pattern with a jet stream, which means it's a wave-like pattern rather than a zonal or straight pattern. And with that, that jet stream will dip down into Pennsylvania, giving us some relief from both the heat and the humidity from this past week as the summer started. That's always good to hear for us ladies because we know we won't be using as much hairspray as we go into the weekend as that humidity dips down. But for Friday afternoon, as a cold front passes through, could be seeing some thunderstorms. But other than that, it will be partly sunny conditions and with a high of 81. Going into Friday overnight, still a chance of some isolated showers. May need to bring your umbrella out if you're going outdoors. But other than that, it will be partly cloudy with a low of 58 degrees. Going into Saturday, a beautiful day. Definitely take advantage of going outside. Definitely have your sunscreen and your sunglasses ready. We're going to be seeing mostly sunny conditions with a high of 83. Going into Saturday overnight, another beautiful night with some increasing clouds, so not the best night to be stargazing, but it will be a comfortable 60 degrees. Going into Sunday, another beautiful day with some partly sunny conditions, so a little bit more in the way of clouds, but still very warm, 80 degrees, and like I said, with low humidity. Stay tuned for the Weather Whiz quiz and Michael's return with his feature on seafood.
As summer nears, the popularity of seafood increases nationwide, including right here in Pennsylvania. One of the most popular seafoods and delicacies at that is lobster. Most of that is caught here off the coastline of New England. Interestingly enough, environmental conditions can actually impact the quality of the lobster you eat and the price at which you purchase it. The United States is the world's third largest seafood market, with each American consuming an average of 16 pounds of seafood a year. For many, lobster and its succulent meat is considered the ultimate seafood delicacy. A whopping 80% of domestic lobster landings take place in the waters off of Maine, with another 12% or so taking place in Massachusetts waters. According to lobsterman Elliot Thomas, this $300 million per year industry is highly volatile, in part because of its dependence on things like water temperature.
I mean, lobsters have a temperature range that they can live in, and you always fear that the water will get warm.
American lobsters tend to thrive and grow best in fairly shallow, chilly waters below 60 degrees. Being hard-shelled animals, lobsters depend on cool waters to drive their molting cycle, which enables growth.
In order for a lobster to grow, because they have a hard shell, they have to shed, or we call it shed, I guess properly you call it molt.
A juvenile lobster will molt or shed 7 to 10 times in its first year of life. After maturity, the molting process takes place once every several years. However, with each mature molt, a lobster can increase its length by 14% and its weight by nearly 50%. Growth of that magnitude increases the number of lobsters that reach the legal catch limit, and thus increases fishermen's bounty. The more lobster they catch, the lower the price of lobster for the consumer. Slight increases in water temperatures can decrease the amount of time between each molt, but it also reduces the amount of growth that takes place with each shedding. While this subtle warming may have some benefit to lobstermen, most still fear what will happen in the face of unchecked warming. Research shows that there is a critical tipping point at which disease creeps into the picture. When ocean waters reach temperatures above 68 degrees, that's when disease can start to become a problem. The increasingly prevalent shell disease is a bacterial infection that has no effect on the lobster's meat. That's a point reiterated by every local lobsterman I spoke to. The topic of shell disease is such a sensitive one on the docks that not one lobsterman would go on camera to discuss it. Many felt that the mere mention of a disease could threaten the fishery if the public becomes worried about possible negative health impacts. Still, it's a topic gaining the attention of scientists across New England. Bob Glenn, a senior marine fisheries biologist with the Massachusetts Division of Maritime Fisheries, says the number of days with water temperatures above 68 degrees has risen dramatically in recent years, especially south of Cape Cod. Elliot Thomas agrees.
Water temperature has been warming. I can document since 2001. We have temperature probes that we leave on the bottom for the whole summer. Probably over the period of time, it's gone up on the bottom maybe 3 or 4 degrees Fahrenheit. And if you look up and down the coast, pretty much everybody's probes are going up.
In 2010, 1/3 of lobsters caught in Rhode Island waters had shell disease. While not as widespread in Massachusetts, the disease has been noted as far north as Boston. Again, the disease has no impact on the lobster meat. Instead, it's the visual appearance of the lobster that is impacted. That visual impact, however, is very important when it comes to lobster sales. When thinking about lobster, consumers picture a creature with a glistening red shell, and that's what they expect. A diseased lobster simply doesn't provide that luster. Instead, diseased shells are scabby, crusty, and brown, and often thin enough to poke a fork through. While high-quality lobsters have wholesale prices of about $4.50 a pound, or even as high as $10 a pound when prices peaked in 2006, a diseased lobster would garner about 25% less. While some fishermen still catch the diseased specimen, most just toss them back into the sea. The hope is that by the next time the lobster is caught, it will have molted a new, disease-free shell. Naturally, this puts a premium on lobsters with pristine shells, which can lead to higher prices at restaurants, grocery stores, and lobster pounds alike. Reporting along the waterfront in Hingham, Massachusetts, for Weather or Not, I'm Michael Page.
I hope you enjoyed the fabulous weather we had last weekend for Father's Day, and actually it's going to be much of the same thing for this weekend, so perfect for any of your outdoor activities as you go into this weekend. But we could be seeing a thunderstorm on Friday, especially in the afternoon, so maybe hearing some rumbles of thunder, seeing some lightning, so you might need to move your outdoor activities inside, but nonetheless it's going to be partly sunny for the rest of Friday with a high of 81. Then going into the overnight, 58 degrees for Friday overnight. Could be seeing still a chance of a shower or two, so you need to bring your umbrella along with you going outside on Friday. Then for Saturday, perfect conditions, mostly sunny skies, 83 degrees. Going to need your sunscreen though, but the humidity is going to be lower than what we saw this week, so very comfortable for Saturday and lots of sunshine. Then going into Sunday, a little bit more in the way of clouds, but still nonetheless a very nice day. A high of 80, seasonable for this time of year. Going into the outlook for next week, cooler start to the week, around 76 degrees for your Monday. Then we even dip even cooler, right around 70 degrees for Tuesday as a cold front pushes through. And with that, could bring some severe thunderstorms into the forecast for Tuesday and Wednesday. And some storms could even produce hail. So if you do have some outdoor plans for the middle of the week, you need to move those inside as those storms come through the center region. Then going into Thursday and Friday, we return back to average temperatures with the highs right around 80 degrees.
Thanks, Jackie. It's good to know we can finally turn the AC off from the heat episode we experienced this week, that we won't experience another one coming up next week. But for now, let's turn it over to the trivia question that we asked you earlier on in the show.
Yes, we asked you guys at home, what is the #1 weather-related killer in the United States? Is it A, heat, B, tornadoes, C, hurricanes, or D, floods? And if you answered A, heat, you are correct. He is the #1 weather-related killer in the United States. And, you know, Brandon, the National Weather Service issues out all those heat warnings and heat watches, and the public really needs to take those seriously, especially going into the summer. And if you don't have air conditioning at home, you can always go out to public buildings that offer it, such as the mall, the movie theater, or even the library.
Yeah, that's really great advice, especially as we start to progress to the summer months, because summer just began this past Wednesday.
Yeah.
But for now, that's all the time we have at this edition of Weather or Not. I'm your host, Brandon Orr.
And I'm your forecaster, Jackie Laird.
We'll be with you next week with Sydney Daniel, who is back giving some details on how you can stay safe at the golf course when thunderstorms approach. We'll see you then.